And then I just took some like stock embers at the end, made them more red, and then here we have it, the final logo. This video got 4,000 views without me touching it. This got 4,000 views without me touching it. I put this as the title, chose these words semi-carefully. I didn't even put like a proper description or tags. The thing that amazed me even more that this even got views was because the audio got ripped off for copyright reasons. I think I used a 21 Savage song, so I'm an idiot. So I'm gonna like do a commentary over it today and like break down what I actually was doing during the process, right? And hopefully you guys can figure out a bit more about like how I do what I do and like how you would make a gaming logo if you wanted to. So I already pre-drew the thing, started off with a base illustration. The guy told me he wanted like a skull with like a gas mask, and I thought, let's integrate like a gaming helmet into that sort of thing. So I sketched it out. I literally sketched out one side on a piece of scrap paper, brought it into Photoshop, added contrast so you could only see the line work. And what you see me doing here is the pen tool. I'm literally going dot to dot. If you ever see a curved line, it's because I'm holding it. There are tons of tutorials on how to use pen tool online. I'm just pen tooling out all the areas where I've done shadows, and I'm trying to just draw in these areas. And when you do pen tool it, when you like join all the dots up at the end, if you make it into like a full circle, like a full shape, it turns it into it turns it from a line into an actual like full-on shape that you can then mess with. So you can see here I'm like minusing something out. I have a thing coming up in the future as to how I minus things out like that. But yeah, here we are just editing some of the lines. I prefer to go in a bit more rough and then tweak it afterwards. So we have a bit of like a mouthpiece part, which I said there, I wanted to use like Darth Vader inspiration. There's nothing wrong with taking like good inspo from pop culture. And then again, here I'm just messing around with it, seeing what looks best in my mind. And I think I revisit this part later, but I didn't want it to necessarily look too accurate to a skull because it can be a bit more angular and jagged. It can be, maybe it's an alien skull. Making like little canisters on the gas mask here. And I had an idea in a second, which I think you might start to realize. I had an idea on the fly, which I didn't plan. But because it was gaming and I was doing like the headphones anyway, these were going to turn into like sort of like speakers, like subwoofer sort of things. I thought it'd be kind of neat to do shading in this kind of style because I'm not like, I didn't want to fill this thing with gradients. So I thought for shading, these lines kind of look like nice shadow lines. Various circles that I've just twisted and contorted and I'm just resizing now. Hopefully not a bit more obvious. That tries to make it look like a subwoofer. Yeah, no, I gave it like an earpiece here as well because I thought if it resembles some sort of headset, that could be neat. Bit of an alien overlord sort of thing, you know, very metal. And here, you can actually move like the space in between the shape, which is weird. Like if you grab a bunch of those dots at once, you can move them around and contort them. And here I'm going for some sort of like, again, this isn't entirely based on reality. We're mixing and matching it. You can see I had all the inspiration on the left, but I was working on that bottom bit to add some sort of like tubing. I tried to add some more shadow lines at the top, but they really looked like eyelashes. So again, trial and error. Here we go, adding like some sort of more angular like pipe work. Again, it should make some sort of sense in terms of functionality, but it can just be, this isn't something that's going to exist in 3D space. No one has to go model this for a game afterwards. It's just going to be, a 2D thing. So if it just is suggestive of technology or like cool things, like to me that did the job. You can see here trying to represent components. This bit was really like a tiny little detail, so I was just messing with things, and in the end I just ripped that whole thing out and went a lot more simple. You can see here I just put in like a bit of a shape. With any design, when it says, oh, like, how do you think of that thing? It's usually trial and error. It usually looks like crap at first, and then you do it 5 times, and then you figure something out. I think as well, you might notice moments where I pause and I wander off and come back after I've like grabbed a coffee or something. It just helps. Again, I had another go at trying to do these shadow lines here. Just didn't feel, it looked like eyelashes. It didn't feel right. It was like making the skull look hilarious. So I was just like, nah. Those ones I kept in the middle. So I thought I was happy with that. I flipped it. That was my baseline illustration. Like, let's say if you were going to get a tattoo, this would be your base like line work. Then I went in and added color. I knew I kind of wanted to work with a red. So what I did is I took one red and then took a few shades just a little bit further up on the spectrum, like moved it up a little bit lighter and then a little bit darker. and just literally found a few areas where I thought, you know, this part would stick out more, this part would go in a bit more, and just drew, like, again, there are many, many different ways to do this. For me, as someone who doesn't have like a Wacom tablet or anything, or isn't particularly gifted in illustration or anything, this is the easiest way for me, is just join the dots, So you can see me here, I literally did dot to dot and then curved them out afterwards. And then sent it all behind the image, and there you go. But you can already tell, like, as I start to add these on the eye socket and stuff, how much more depth it gives it. It's like, it looks way more impressive than it actually is, because it has that extra layer now. We're starting to address some of the tubing and stuff that I've made. Inner eye socket, I had this idea of making it a little bit of a red glow. I think I get rid of this a little bit because it was a bit too much. But looking at more of the reference imagery for like how they've done sort of highlights and shadows, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can sort of do these red things in here just to sort of suggest a bit of a glow, a bit of an evil thing. I really struggled with getting this circle to look right. Bearing in mind, guys, as well, this was 2 years ago I made this, and now I could probably make this in about half the time, which is hilarious because at the time, this is one of the things I'm most proud of. I think this was it wasn't a very talked about planned project. It was something that really just came in as like someone I was working with said, oh, hey, I know someone who wants to start streaming. They want you to do a logo. Can you do it? And this was made in a day. But it took about 6 hours, I think, total. I'm adding some cracks here for a bit more detail. It's symmetrical, but a little bit of tiny asymmetry can just help round things out. Okay, so now real quick, what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning up any excess lines, and I'm taking a whole version of the logo, copying it, and just in the back, just mushing it all together into one black shape and adding like a red outline. Just gives me a lot more control. Because what you're going to see now, and this happens for a lot of esports logos, is you have your base illustration and then like 5 or 6 outer lines just to add like more chunk and depth. Tried adding some flames that I found on a stock website. Just felt it was a bit cringe. I wasn't feeling it. So in a second, wasn't feeling it though in the end, I just get rid of the thing. Now I felt like it needed a little extra. I didn't want to just put text on this because there's no part of this logo I would be happy to hide or that I thought text could sit on, because it's very like pointy at the bottom and rounded at the top. It didn't have a place where text could like glide on it nicely. So I thought, screw it, let's add like a sort of shield in the background. Again, we can talk about fonts in a bit, but I couldn't find a nice font, like the perfect font. I took a font that I felt was pretty close. It had like this is called Agency FB, but this was kind of, it gave me some vibes of like college football, a few vibes of like maybe Call of Duty Black Ops. And then you can see me going through here editing, literally adding more angular lines. I've turned this font into shapes now, so it's an editable shape. So now I'm just taking these lines and like cutting out shapes from it and contorting it like any other shape. So I think at one point actually I noticed that I messed up. I brought you see here I like drag the S around. I think I delete the wrong thing and I leave it going a bit, it doesn't come down enough. The S doesn't meet the bottom of the C. I do address that later, I think. Yeah, there we go. But I spent a lot of time on this part. Editing fonts is not an easy one, and I would caution people against it if they're getting into this early. Because you need a lot of understanding of like why these accents go there. If you're wondering what this is, this looks scary because it all just exploded. I did the same thing again. I like duplicated the font on itself to add like outline, so I can cut out that line underneath to perfectly fit with it. And now what I'm doing is I'm just using Illustrator's inbuilt like warp effects to like arc it up and down. Did it a few times because I didn't like it. I'm trying to recreate that sort of like Everlast sort of or like Lonsdale London, I think it is, like the way it sort of like pushes in at the top a little and then pushes in at the bottom a lot. Gives it a bit more of like a boxing logo sort of thing. And now again, I'm just taking the outer shape of that skull and just cutting into it like that. And much like when I added the shadows to the skull, I'm now just adding a slightly lighter layer inside it. I do gradient this up so that it sort of fades. And then inside the white text, I'm adding another layer, offset a little bit inside it, that fades from grey to white to give it that metal shiny sort of look. And then I'm going to chop the top off, you'll see in a second. So it goes about halfway up, and then it fades to white at the halfway mark, so it looks like it's got this really sort of like 3D shine to it, but it's really easy. It's just a little one effect. Brought it into Photoshop now to add like a bit of an extra flair. So I've put the logo larger than itself in the background, faded some of it out, erased it, added a bit of red glow, and now you'll see I blurred the whole logo on top of itself. I've made a second logo on top of itself. You can't see it because it's perfectly on top of it. Blurred it and then erased most of the blur and kept some on the corners. Really tiny little trick, but it adds this effect. And then I just took some like stock embers at the end, made them more red, and then here we have it, the final logo. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like. It really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm for the searches. And also, if you really want to see more content, hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow me on Twitter at probably Koi.